Hey guys, welcome back. So happy you are here. I cannot believe that we are at June already, which means we've been open a year. We made it. We made it through the toughest year for any business, but then we also made it through the toughest year of any business and COVID. So a big special thank you to all of you who helped. You know that you're the lifeline to this business, and I really appreciate all of you coming in and just being such great customers. But so for June, we're going back to Italy again. This one a little different and a little more special to me. This month we're doing southern Italy. Not that that's that unique, but I wanted to do this one. I had a special opportunity to pick up wines that I used to personally import. I was able to put together a deal with my former business partner, and even though the wines aren't currently in Wisconsin, I wanted to make sure that I could do something special and really get you guys something nice. Not that everything else hasn't been nice, everything else has been amazing, I hope, and I'm sure based on everyone's feedback, but to me, these just are a little bit more special. Wines, like I said, wineries that I've worked with going back to 2010. So very excited to bring you these. I was able to talk a buddy into kind of being the middleman to get the wines here into Wisconsin. So we'll be doing all Southern Italy all month long. Look for special things by the glass, fun, different, unique things as well. But also this month, I'm starting a new format for the videos. Instead of doing multiple videos, I'm just gonna do one video a month. I spend a lot of time editing them. You'd be surprised how many times I stutter and have to go back and do things again. So what I'm going to do is, in the description below, there'll be a timestamp with the name of the wine. So regardless of what club you're in, yes, if you want to watch the whole video, that'd be amazing. I'd appreciate that. You'd learn a lot. But at the same time, you can just go to the description. You can click on the wine, so you can just see that little snippet of the wine that you'll be having. But again, of course, you're more than welcome to watch all the entire video. That'd be a big help on your side for me as well. If nothing else, it's good background while you're cooking information, and it's slightly educational. So let's get started. So first up, we're going to be talking about Michele Alois. Michele Alois is a wine producer, wine grower in the town of Caserta. This is in the region of Campania. So this would be, if you're looking at Italy like the boot, this is the shin of the boot. And the town of Caserta is best known as a historical home of the Bourbon Empire. And I don't mean this kind of bourbon. The Kingdom of France, going back to the 1500s, they had their palace in Versailles, while they had a palace in Caserta. Historically, the Alois family was known as one of the top silk producers, silk makers in the world. They have stuff hanging in the Vatican. They have stuff hanging in the Louvre. They have stuff hanging in the White House. So the palace that's in Caserta is decorated with a lot of their family adornments. Michele Alois, now, not the current generation because his sons are now running it. Massimo is an amazing guy. I can't wait till they start traveling again because I want to get him here. But Michele, I think in 1992, it wasn't his thing. It wasn't his thing to do the silk making. That's just not what he saw for himself. So he purchased, at this time, very, very small property, just a couple of hectares, just to do it. It's what he wanted to do. That's where his passion was. And he planted exclusively varietals that are native to not only Campania, but Caserta. And just to give you a little bit of reference, these guys are like in the foothills of Mount Vesuvius, 20 miles-ish north of Naples. But so long since forgotten varietals. Yes, some of them you will see grown, in bigger numbers and grown by bigger producers. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff they do, they're one of just a handful of producers that are growing these things. Even a couple of the varietals had thought been lost completely. Pallagrello Nero, Pallagrello Bianco, we're talking less than a couple dozen acres in the world of these grapes are planted, including one called Casa Vecchia. which translates to the old house. Well, how did this wine get its name? And now there's a Pliny the Elder story that's in my head that's related to this wine, but I don't remember it exactly. I'll research it more, and you can ask me when you come in, because you watch this video and you know. Casa Vecchia. Casa Vecchia is a plant. They found one vine left in all of Caserta. This vine was believed to be over 400 years old. They were able to basically take cuttings from this 400-year-old vine and repropagate it, and now have turned it into a wine that they can make a decent number of. I want to say it's something like 1,000 six-packs a year. But this is also a wine that gets some of the top recognition of all of their wines, and of any wine from Campania, really. But first up, we're going to be talking about the Alois Caulino. Caulino is their Falanghina. So the Caulino is a grape called Falanghina. A fairly obscure grape, although it is grown all over Campania. So as far as Campanian whites go, it's that, Greco de Tufo, some of the better known of Campanian whites, which isn't really saying much because most people don't know of Campanian whites. But what makes this so interesting is, if people are Pinot Grigio drinkers in your life, your friends, your family, they should be divorced. No, get them a Falanghina and just show them how much better a white wine can be. They can be on the simple side, but they do tend to have a lot more minerality. Now think about this, very volcanic soils, so you get a little bit more of a mineral complexity to it, but it's also a varietal that tends to have a little bit more of a floral quality to it as well. It is the seafood white of southern Italy. Regardless of what region you're in, you're pretty much going to see a Falanghina as the white that they serve with seafood. A great one here. No oak on this. Very clean, meant to be a younger drinking wine, but can age for a couple of years. But it won't last that long in your cellars, I promise. So next up from Michele Alois as well, we're doing the Caiati. So this is the second white, or the first white, this is the white of your club. Caiati gets its name from these vineyards being in the foothills of the Caiatini Mountains. This is a grape called Pallagrello Bianco. Pallagrello Bianco is one of those varietals, as I mentioned in the intro about Alois, that was all but lost. There are now 14 acres or something like that in the, of all the producers, not just theirs, of every producer growing Pallagrello Bianco. Very, very tiny production. The name comes from the Latin term Ippolito or something like that, which, because these are very, very tiny grapes, Ippolito translates to small ball. So just being a much smaller grape is where the name comes from, Pallagrello. And this was the king's wine back in the 1600s, the time of the Bourbons. We need to verify those dates. This is another wine that sees no oak, only stainless steel. It does age for a little bit longer. It is a little bit more of a richly textured white in comparison to the Falanghina. Maybe if Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc had a baby, because you do get a little bit of the citrus quality, but you get that richness, kind of that beeswax, almond skin texture, mouthfeel, like you would in a Chardonnay. So much bigger, richer, white without being heavy. But also, like Chardonnay, has that kind of that tropical fruit that you expect from a good Chardonnay anyway. Pineapple and melon and peach. But again, with a little bit of citrus on it as well. All right, next up, we're talking about Ippolito 1845. Another winery I just adore the guys. Vincenzo has been to Wisconsin, especially a couple of times. He works with his brother Gianluca. They are now the fifth generation of family members running Ippolito. 1845 is in the name, hence that's when they were founded, 1845. These guys are in Calabria, so this would be the toes of Italy if you're looking at this like a foot. So very, very far down, right next to Sicily. This winery is in the town of Ciró Marina. So Ciró, the town, Marina, the marina of Ciró. And Ciró is the appellation here as well. They best known for their reds, which is a grape called Galioppo. And Galioppo, this is one of Vincenzo's phrases, but he calls it Nebbiolo Giante. So what does that mean? Well, it means Nebbiolo-like. When they're younger, they're a little bit bigger, a little bit more powerful than you'll find for a Nebbiolo, but kind of a Nebbiolo quality, especially as the wines get older. So I know for a fact I have a 1999 of their kind of top crew at home that I know is just, when I'm ready to open it, it's going to be still alive and kicking. Very high acid, very big, bold structured grape is Galioppo. So first up, we're going to talk about Liber Pater. So Liber Pater is the name of one of the wines that we're doing this month from Ippolito. Again, 100% Galioppo. So these are going to be some of the younger vines of the Galioppo, and a little bit lower down. So 150, 200, 250 meters. The vineyards that these come from, these guys have about 100 acres, 100 hectares. They've got a big property. So, this particular wine from the Liber Pater, which means free father. And first of all, we'll say that is a reference to the wine god Bacchus. So being a little bit younger vines, you're going to have a little bit more growth. So you get a little bit more of a friendly Galioppo, where Galioppos can be really big and extracted. These guys actually are one of the last people to harvest every year, meaning that you're going to end up with a little bit more richness, but a wine with fabulous aromatics, very dark fruit, very dark berry, a fantastic wine for food. The tannins will soften a little bit, but can start out a little bit aggressive, something that, worthwhile to decant or to open prior to dinner, not right as you're about to sit down for dinner. Side note here, Ippolito doesn't claim to be organic, but what I say a lot of times when people ask me about wineries, especially in Italy, France, if you're talking 5th generation, if you use fertilizers and you use chemicals and pesticides and all this stuff, you're going to ruin your property. And this is something that now you've built up to 5 generations. You don't want to ruin this and pass it on to your children that end up with nothing. So a lot of wineries will do the best that they can to be as organic as possible. So next up, if you've got this wine in your club, this is also from Ippolito 1845. This is their Colli di Mancuso. So Mancuso is slang for left. It's at least it's slang for them. When you leave the front of the winery, you turn left to go to this vineyard site. But Colli means the hills, so the hills of the Mancuso vineyard. All of this comes from the Mancuso vineyard, and a little bit higher up, a little bit higher elevations. But the name of this wine is Ciró Rosso Classico Superiore Riserva. That's a mouthful. I actually had to look to make sure I got it right. Ciró Rosso Classico Superiore Riserva. Didn't want to miss one of those words there. So what does that all mean? Well, Ciró Rosso, this is the appellation, comes from the town of Ciró. It's Rosso, red. Classico, so the original area of Ciró, the historic vineyard planting sites of Ciró. Superiore means that it has to achieve 1 extra % of alcohol, which usually requires them to harvest a little bit later. And Riserva. Riserva is more of a denotation of how long a wine's been aged. So they tend to be aged a little bit longer prior to bottling, and then with a little bit of extra bottle age too. Again, 100% Galioppo. These particular wines they tend to leave on the vine until October. So it's a much more rich, full, powerful, extracted version of Galioppo. Galliopo can be anywhere from Pinot Noir to Nebbiolo as it ages, but can be as powerful as any other grape as well. And the longer you leave it on, the little bit more full-bodied style that you're going to get. Definitely a wine that can age for a couple of years, but if you're going to drink it young, then it's just something I would definitely recommend decanting this wine. Give it a little bit of time to open up and breathe, and choose the right food for it. Something a little bit richer, a little bit more full-bodied, a little bit more intense, maybe something smoked, a big bold steak, cut of meat, game meat. These are all going to be great options. Wild boar, if you can track some down, some cinghiale. So hope you love the 2 wines from Ippolito, whichever one you get. And now on to the final 2 wines. Okay, for our last 2 reds, first up we'll talk about the Luccarelli Negroamaro. If you've been in here at all, which you've been in here before, there's a high chance if you've been looking for a good Italian wine, I've recommended the Luccarelli Primitivo. One of my favorite, just under $15 bottles of red, period. It is one of those wines, and very few wines can do it well, where it can be a food wine and a fireplace wine. Such a wonderful gem. I'm happy, and as long as I can always get it here, it will always be here. This one is one that when I used to represent this brand, I used to sell this as, to people, especially if they've loved the Primitivo. This is its big brother. So Negroamaro is the name of the grape. It doesn't have an appellation attached to it. Technically, it's called Salice Salentino. Salice Salentino is Negroamaro. There are some requirements, and this wine used to actually be labeled Salice Salentino. I don't remember exactly what the requirements were, but the winery chose to just switch over to Negroamaro instead of Salice Salentino. Maybe easier for people to say. But this is actually what's considered a cooperative, where there are dozens of landowners, growers that kind of pool their resources, hire, they've got a great guy named Felipe Bacalaro, and Felipe is the lead enologist and lead winemaker. So he helps these guys who independently would be too small to create their own wine and get it marketed. And this group, what they do is, instead of paying people based on quantity of grapes, they pay them on quality of grapes. So they're able to put together a more realistic approach for a small wine grower. They can sell the grapes, they can do everything they can. Obviously they're going to, because you don't get paid if you don't grow good grapes. So picking at the optimum time, making sure that they're doing everything they can. They're not certified organic because you can't when you're a cooperative, but they're all sustainable. Kind of like I said back with Ippolito, you're not going to mess this up for your future generations. So you're going to do everything you can to be responsible to the grapes, to the vines, to the land, and it's going to get you the best result as far as money back for your grape growing. Again, the Negroamaro I kind of describe as the Primitivo's big brother. So very similar in style. It's going to be a little bit more rich, bold, powerful, a little bit more of a little bit less of that rich fruit and a little bit more of bold intensity, if that makes sense. A little bit more spice to it. Almost has this, bacony, meat kind of aroma to it. It's just one of those wines, not in a gross way, but kind of like Ciró tends to have a little bit of a more charred smoked meat kind of quality, just to the aromatics. It doesn't taste like charred meat. But a fantastic, just another wine that could be a great food wine or fireplace wine, but definitely a wine to serve with a bigger meal. Game meat, roasted foods, smoked meats, again, would be another good option for the Luccarelli Negroamaro. All right, and last up, we've got the Donna Paolina Taurasi. So Taurasi is an appellation. We're back in Campania now. Campania is the shin of the boot, and Taurasi is the Brunello, the Barolo, that big name top dog wine, but instead of being from Piedmont or Tuscany, it comes from Campania. And the grape here is called Aglianico. Aglianicos tend to be very big, smoky, meaty, powerful wines. So with Taurasi, it's a requirement that it ages for a long time before it gets released. Minimum, they age this in barrels for 30 months before they even bottle it, and then usually hold on to the bottles for a year or two. So a wine that can last and last and last. This one that you're getting right now is 2014, so it's already 7 years old, and that's the current release. But that's what you want with Taurasi. You want it to have already, somebody else to spend that time waiting for it. It's a monster. So Donna Paolino was actually started from the Alois family, so from the first wine that we talked about, the whites this month. And they partnered up with 2 other wineries to come together and create Donna Paolina. It's actually not a specific person or anything like that. It's a fictitious name representing this winery of these 3 families that are working together. And Michele Alois, Massimo, more directly, is the one kind of spearheading this. So they make 4 different wines total, but the Taurasi is the king. It's the one you want. It's going to be a big, bold, deep red in color, but a very complex nose of tobacco and cherry, violets, berry fruits, and a good dose of spice to it as well. Again, these are going to be wineries or vineyard sites that are going to be kind of in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. So you do have a very mineral-rich soil, very smoky. But as a wine like this ages, you're going to get some of this, secondary and tertiary flavors of, the tobacco comes out a little bit more, almost a quality of like good used leather. Then you also get that dark cherry and more rich, intense fruits. All right, there you have it, guys. Hope you love the wines of the month. I'm very happy to be able to bring these to you. I hope you guys enjoy them as much as I do, and I hope we have more where this came from in the future months, where if I can put together another deal like this, where it's really cool to get stuff that's, these wines aren't in Wisconsin, so you guys are getting to try a special treat. So again, hope you enjoy them. Hope to see you soon, guys. Cheers.